Good morning, everyone. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Going to say good morning to Dan Cullen, to Jim Turner, and to Gary Muirhead first off the mark this morning. How the bejesus is everyone, says Dan Cullen, back in Basingstoke to do a 20-minute job and wait for a low loader. Good luck with that. Yes, how are you all doing? How was your weekend? Spent a large part of mine either writing or planning for 2024. Realise 2024 is still a good few weeks away, but you can never be too prepared. I was never a Boy Scout, but I buy into the ethos anyway. Besides, if I don't keep refreshing my output, I'll get bored. If I get bored, you get bored, and where would that all leave us? So I'll come back to the planning element in just a second. But first, the writing. Today's column is a bit different because it's actually a work of fiction. Yeah, well, I say that, but the characters, the dialogue, and the story itself are plucked straight from my imagination. But I think the actual theme of the story will resonate with quite a few people. In fact, it already has. So if you'd like to read that, you can do so over in the chat. As soon as I can find the right button to press, it is that one. I'm also going to say very quick good morning to Ken Hatcher. I'm going to use his button right now, and I'm going to say good morning to Mark Whiting, who has just arrived as well. Morning, Mark. Thank you very much indeed for being here. I hope you're all fit and well, people. Now, I mentioned planning for next year, so let me start with the good news. The Breakfast Show isn't going anywhere. We'll continue to broadcast 5 times a week, as per usual, whenever we possibly can. But I want to write more. It is what I do for a living, after all. So I'm setting myself a target of 2 weekly columns starting in January. And in addition to that, I'm going to be writing, I'm hoping to write, something non-industry related every single week. I'm going to say good morning as well while we're here to my mate Dave Paget, who's down at Kent Demolition. Morning, Dave. Thank you very much indeed for being here. How are things down in Kent? Well, I say Kent Demolition, but it's Kent Demolition, Kent Machines, Kent Hydraulic Hoses. More to them than just demolition these days. Go and check them out. And just as an aside, I don't normally promote companies free of charge, but this, I do believe this is a different one. Every Friday, if you pop in to visit the fine folks at Kent Demolition down in Kent, no great surprise, they have free donuts. Free donuts. What more? I suggest we all form an orderly queue or hire a bus and go and visit. Go and visit Kent Demolition for a free donut. Andy Bullock's just arrived. Morning, Andy. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Next thing, you'll be an author selling books. Already doing that, Dan. What have I got? 5 books out there? 6 books out there. I'm not going to use this as a sales pitch. Yes. So I was talking about writing. I'm also planning to do some longer form video next year. Haven't decided what the subject matter is going to be, but I can spend days and hours working on videos for other people. I think it's about time I did a bit of that for myself. So just one final thing for now, because I'm actually going to start the show. Good morning, Chrisfield, by the way. Please don't forget that on Wednesday evening, 7 p.m. this week, we are going to be broadcasting our prediction show. Good morning to Tim Meaney as well over at M&M Demolition. Hope you're fit and well, Tim. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Yes, our prediction show for 2024, Wednesday evening, 7 p.m. So make sure you tune in. That's kind of a given, but I'd really like you to arrive with some predictions of your own, be it industry related, construction related, demolition related, equipment related, or anything else for that matter. If you've got a really strong feeling that something's going to happen in 2024, we'd like to know about it. So without further ado, let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road. It is Monday, the 4th of December. Really, 4th of December. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, we say a fond farewell to Fiddler's Ferry Power Station. Try saying that with somebody else's teeth in. That things get epic with a Liebherr R 9800 excavator. And electric is the answer for indoor demolition, in my opinion. Love to get your thoughts. Plus, how Rhodarr is harnessing Hyundai power. And we're going to get to all that in just a second, but we're going to peer back first through the mist of time to see what was happening on this day in history. You'll be pleased to know this wasn't a particularly big day in history. There's a few bits and pieces, but not as long as usual. So let's have a bit of that, shall we? On this day in 1791, the first episode of The Observer was published. That was the first Sunday newspaper in the entire world. In 1956, Elvis Presley, Carl Perkins, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Johnny Cash gathered for an impromptu recording session at Sun Studios in Memphis. Imagine how much I think they actually called it at the time the $1 Million Quartet. I think it's more like $1 billion these days, given inflation. In 1961, the female contraceptive pill was made available on the NHS. And on this day, in 1980, Led Zeppelin disbanded. Can't say I was sorry, not a fan, but that's just me. Now, before we get into the real meat of the show, please let me remind you very quickly of our question of the day. We've already had at least one answer, I think, but let's see if we can get some more. Here we go. Yep, thought I'd ease you into the week with a nice easy question today. What is your favourite movie of all time? Lots of movies that I love. Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile, Stand By Me, Once Upon a Time in America, The Godfather, ideally part 2, but that's just me. But if there is one that stands out about head and shoulders above the rest, for me, it is Jaws. I've watched it, and I know this is not an exaggeration. This is not journalistic license. I've watched it literally hundreds of times. If it was on TV right now or in about an hour's time, I would happily sit there and watch it again, reciting the script as I went. But what about you? Let us know in the chat. What is your favourite all-time movie? We'll come back to that at the end of the show. Mother Nature can have a dark sense of humour sometimes. On Sunday morning, the eyes of the demolition world turned to Fiddler's Ferry power station as P.P. O'Connor prepared to bring down the iconic cooling towers in an explosive demolition event. And then, just as they were about to hit the button, the mist rolled in to largely obscure a lot of the action. Thankfully, the team at drone specialist Sky Revolutions was on hand to capture that which was visible. So, regardless of the fog, one hell of a movie.
Three, two, one. Fire now. Fire now.
Yeah, despite the miss, that was a terrific job. So hats off, literally hats off to the entire team at P.P. O'Connor for a job well done, but also to Sky Revolutions for pulling off such an epic film in such trying circumstances. We'll be back to epic in just a second, I promise. But one of the things that struck me about that was the countdown. We tend to play quite a few American countdowns here, or American explosive demolitions, where they do the 10, 9, 3, 2, 1. Fire in the hole, and they awfully carried away. And yet here in the UK, we say 3, 2, 1. Very calm. Very, very calm indeed. I like it. Now, I did promise you some epic. I've got it coming up. Stay tuned.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yes, I'm going to say good morning to Graham Footy Williams, who has just arrived. Good morning to you, sir. Yeah, okay, we'll come back to the rest of that. Now, as I say, I promised you epic, and epic you shall jolly well have. Frankly, machines don't come much more epic than the Liebherr R 9800. Honest.
My name's Ian Birdsall. I'm an excavator operator here at Bengalla. The feeling of operating the 9800 is very smooth, comfortable. It doesn't rock like a lot of the other excavators that are out there. Yeah, it's nice. What I like best about the 9800 is it's very productive. The functionality of the cab is, you know, everything's within arm's reach and where it should be. It has very good visibility. The tech in the 9800, it has a bucket fill assist, makes life a lot easier when trying to fill the bucket. Training and support was excellent. We had a specialist trainer come to site from Liebherr to get everyone familiar with all the new OEM. Yeah, lots of maintenance support that came with the excavator as well. It was excellent. The future with the 9800 is very exciting to see, you know, get into some really good digs and see how much dirt it can move.
That could very easily become my new favourite machine. Just a shame that most of them are so bloody far away. I'd love to go and spend some time just watching that beast. I think somebody else enjoyed that as well. Let's have a look. Who was it? Yeah, there's Dan Cullen saying, that is a fine beast. I agree. Wow, some buttons and switches and a lot of climbing. Yeah, it certainly is, but well worth it when you get there. Now, we need a bit of this. You know that thing that people say about teamwork makes the dream work? Yeah, naff. It's a cliche, right? And yet, in some instances, very, very true. Everybody knows their role and they all know what they're supposed to be doing. Might have to send a copy of that film over to West Ham because as it stands at the moment, they sure as hell don't. That's a whole other story. Now, I want to say a very quick good morning to my mate Tatiana. Tatiana, good morning to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. For those of you that don't know, Tatiana she's basically in charge of all things social media over at Route 1 Publishing. So that's World Highways and Aggregates Business. Go give her a follow over on LinkedIn because the videos that she's producing at the moment are pretty damn good, I have to say. Some really good stuff coming out of there. So if you're into highways, if you're into quarrying and that kind of thing, go follow Tatiana. You can thank me later and tell her I sent you while you're there. Now, let's have a bit of this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
We talk a lot about electrification on this show, and I know we all have our concerns over how it might all work and whether electric really is a sensible and viable alternative to diesel power. But there is another side to that argument. There are certain jobs, excuse me, my computer's just freaked out. There are certain jobs, let me get back to where I was. I'm going to say this for the third and final time. There are certain jobs. There are certain jobs that, because of noise and emissions, a diesel machine simply cannot be used. In those instances, electric machines seem like the perfect solution. One of those instances is indoor demolition. Have to say, I'm mightily impressed by those machines. Excuse me. Internal strip out of buildings is currently very labour intensive, and it does therefore expose workers to potential injury. By mechanising and electrifying the process, demolition could actually become quicker and safer. So, in my opinion, and in the opinion of John Travolta, it's electrifying. Thanks for that, John. Now, some of you had some comments. Dan Cullen says that looks a handy little tool. What hours work on a battery charger? Don't know, but I can certainly find out. Peter McKenna clearly spends too much time watching TV because he reckons that the little loader looks like Nunu off the Teletubbies. I think that wasn't that a Hoover or a vacuum cleaner or something? It's been a long while since I watched the Teletubbies. Dan Cullen says indoor demo has to be the one and only Brock. I agree. Brock or Husqvarna. I'm not proud. I'd go either way. What I would say is they also offer a loader. They've also got a machine for taking up floor tiles as well. You can't do that with a Brock. So, horses for courses. There's some whole body vibration with that skid steer. There's again, it's better than whole body ache and pain from swinging a hammer. Precisely my point. One of the issues that we've spoken about here, and Dr. Terry Cornby has done a lot more work on it than I have, is in terms of pure demolition, we've pushed men further and further back. So Brock's, as Dan Cullen has mentioned, you've got the man stood well back, machine doing the work. Alternatively, you've then got high reach excavators, so they're working, and the operators are well back, the operatives are well back, and so on down the line. Where we haven't conquered is indoor demolition, so the internal strip out and that kind of thing. I think if you can mechanize it, particularly with something zero emissions, wouldn't that be a fantastic way forward? Peter McKenna says, wouldn't like to fall off it though. You think they have a man secure system on it? I have to say, I watched a few of those sort of machines ride on, not sit on, but ride on loaders and stuff at our plant works this year. And I have to say, I thought exactly the same. But I think some training is required. Now, shall we do a bit of this?
If you would like to buy a limited edition Break Fast show sticker, head on over to buymeacoffee.com/demolition news/extras.
And we're going to play out today with a spot of Hyundai action. Just recently, it seems that all our Hyundai content has been coming from the US, but this one comes from much closer to home. I think you'll enjoy this one.
Hello, my name's Lee and I work for Rhodarr. We undertake asbestos removal, demolition and remediation. So we're here at Kirkstall Road in Leeds. We're doing a mixed residential, multi-purpose commercial unit. We've got two Hyundai machines on site. We've got the 48 tonne and we've got the 33 tonne. So me personally, I drive the 330 behind us. I like the 360 degree view for the cameras, so when I'm tracking about I can see everything. The smooth operation of the hydraulic controls from the levers, because it just gives me that precision edge of the competitive models, and personally the heated seat on a cold morning. Objects fly towards the cab at all times. We've had it spec'd out with the fallen object cages on the windows, just in case anything untoward does come towards us. It bounces off them rather than come through the window and hits me. I feel a lot safer. It's a safer machine to operate. Also, braking and munching, there's a lot of loud noises and stuff. When the doors are closed, there's not a lot of leakage, decibel-wise, coming through into the cab. My head's clear at the end of the day. When I do my daily checks in the morning, everything's easily accessible. Everything's there. You open a door and it's just there in front of you. The fuel efficiency is absolutely fantastic for me personally compared to the other machines I've operated. A full tank lasts a lot longer, which means that I'm able to operate longer and I'm not stood fueling up at the end of every shift. Taylor and Braithwaite, if we ever need any service support or anything like that, they're always at the end of the phone. They're always on site within a matter of hours. Tools in and straight on with the job. For me, power-wise, there is no other. Pulls everything out of the ground quite easily enough. The attachments we can put on it feel a lot more powerful than other machines with their attachments.
Building a comfortable tomorrow.
Terrific film and a terrific pair of machines as well. Seems like a perfectly appropriate place to call a halt to proceedings for another day. That pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today. Fancy a bit of a chin wag about whether young people should come into the industry and stuff, but also going to be talking about electric machines and a whole host of other things as well. If you can't stick around for that, then please stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. If you do have the time, however, and the inclination, then please stick around, because I will be back with the Craic immediately after this final word from our key show sponsor. Good morning, all. How are we? bit of a I almost said a frog in my throat today. Let's have a look. Let's go right back to the very beginning of the chat. I'm just going to post this again very, very quickly, because I have to admit I'm quite proud of it. It's actually called Sam's Story. Ignore the way it's written on the screen there. That is my latest column for a Monday morning, but this one is a bit unusual because it is a work of fiction, completely plucked out of my head. Although the feedback I've had on it so far, it's clearly struck a chord with quite a few people. We'll come on to that in just a second. So who was first off the mark? First off the mark this morning was Dan Cullen. Morning, Dan, who is back in Basingstoke, hopefully for not too long. But he's been saying that for at least 2 weeks now, so we shall see. Morning, Dan. Morning also to Gary Muirhead, Mr. Gary Muirhead, our usual quizmaster, although today's question is one of mine, which is probably why it's not had a huge amount of response. I don't know. I do try. Jim Turner's here as well. Morning, Jim. Hope you're fit and well. I know somebody, I think it's Ken Hatter actually mentions a bit later on, the fact that there was insufficient winds this weekend for power generation. It's bloody windy here. That being said, there are no wind turbines here in leafy Surrey. We probably wouldn't allow it. Far too common, you see. Dan Cullen says, how Jesus is everyone back in Basingstoke to do a 20-minute job. What a fantastic way of working that is. And there is our friend Ken Hatcher, who has got rain. We've got rain, but I think we are expecting some snow either tonight or tomorrow morning, and then possibly on Wednesday as well. So we shall see. I'll keep you posted. Typical, because I've written a new article. It's quite a long one, this one actually, about I've been following a project that's literally a couple of hundred yards away from my front door. They are replacing the what is it called? The footbridge at my local railway station. And the story is not about the job, but it's about the fact that the guys that are working on it, the amount of money that they're spending in local shops and stuff. There is this talk about for every pound that is spent on construction, the UK economy gets £2.92 back. To my mind, that's kind of an intangible. It's not like, here's a pound, oh, there's your £2.92. It doesn't work quite like that. But because I'm in and out of my local town on a fairly regular basis, in and out of the post office, the cafe where they do the bacon rolls, and rather too often, the coffee shop and everything. I'm in and out of there at least once a day generally. And I've seen an awful lot of the guys in the orange high-vis, because it's a railway job, in there. Bizarrely, I've seen them getting their hair cut, buying sandwiches, buying coffee, buying tea, buying bars of chocolate, buying energy drinks. And most bizarre of all, and this, I didn't spot this, but my wife did. My wife went down to our local town about 2 weeks ago to get her nails done. And there were two guys in there. They'd parked their rigger boots by the door, and they were soaking their feet, getting their toenails cut. All spending money in the local economy. The story's coming. The reason I mention that is it's pouring with rain where I am right now, and it's going to be snowing for the next 2 days. I need to get some photographs of my local town, but I can't do it at the moment because the weather's not up to it. A bit like the explosive demolition of PP O'Connor up at Fiddler's Ferry, but we'll come back to that. Now, as I mentioned, my mate Dave Paget is in the house. It says Kent Demolition. There's more to Kent Demolition than just demolition these days. They are selling machines. They are also repairing your hydraulic hoses. But far more importantly than all of that, on a Friday, you pop into Kent Demolition, there are donuts to be had. You have no idea how hard it's been. I mean, to get to Kent Demolition is going to take me about an hour and 15 minutes, I guess. But the temptation to just jump in my car after Friday's show and just head down there just for the donuts, and obviously for Dave's company as well, you have no idea how hard it is to resist. I won't be able to resist much longer. There is Andy Bullock. Morning, Andy. I hope you're fit and well, my friend. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Now, Dan Cullen has said, next thing you'll be an author selling books. Now, on that subject, I happen to have, I had to order a few more to give away, believe it or not. That was my first. My Dad Does Demolition, which obviously is a children's book. It was My Dad Does Demolition. My dad drives a digger, but then I've done Demolition 2051. I've done Renaissance, why JCB is the Apple of the digger world, and I've done some others as well, all of which are available on Amazon. I'm not going to do the sales pitch, but if ever you fancy reading something I've written, I tell you what, rather than doing that, go over to either Substack, demolitioninsider.substack.com, or go and have a look at what I'm doing over on Medium, which is where I'm doing my non-industry related writing. Nice. Too far, though. Okay, yes. That is talking about donuts. There you are. Dan Cullen says, no way, I'll be there for a free cuppa. Listen, go along, meet Dave. You'll like him. He's a smashing fella. Go along and meet him. Tell him I sent you. Have a donut. See, it's like a public service we offer here. Good morning, comrades, says our resident communist, apparently, Chris Ford. Morning, Chris. Thank you very much indeed for being here. And also, thank you for your comment over on Facebook on my column for today. Very good points, well made, I would say. Chris's point basically is there was a time when sons followed fathers into work, be it at a factory, be it demolition or farming or construction. not so much anymore. Not so much. And that is basically the theme of the story for today. There is our friend Tim Meaney, who I don't know if he followed his father, but he is most certainly in Demolition because he is at M&M Demolition at the moment. Dan Cullen says, top of the morning, Tim Meaney and Chris Sword. Good morning, all. Glenn Johnson's in the house. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, good morning to you as well. Now, my question of the day was, what is your favourite all-time movie? I'm partly in agreement with a couple of people here, which we'll come to in just a second. Mine, I'm going Jaws all day long. Absolutely. And I can look beyond the clunky rubber shark and all of that. The shocks don't shock me anymore and all the things, but just a magnificent film. And the whole USS Indianapolis speech on board the boat, about as good as acting actually gets. Gary Muirhead, his favourite movie is Goodfellas. It is an awesome movie. I have to admit, I do have a bit of a thing for gangster movies. So Goodfellas, Casino, Once Upon a Time in America, The Godfather 1 and 2, not so struck on 3. Love all of those, but Goodfellas, yeah, an absolute standout. Dan Cullen says, pity it was so misty on that demolition at the power station. It was, but you have to roll with what you've got. And I guess, I don't suppose there was any more dust on this job than any other demolition, explosive demolition. But at least nobody's going to complain about the dust because you couldn't see it for the mist. So what the hell? Dan Cullen says, question of the day, Green Mile. Hard to argue with that. It really is. I make no secret of the fact that I'm a huge Stephen King fan. If you can see the bookshelf behind me, it's absolutely full of Stephen King. When they released The Green Mile, the book, it didn't come out as a book. It came out as a series of books. I think there were 6. And they came out on a weekly basis over a period of, not surprisingly, 6 weeks. So you got a chapter, then another chapter, and then another chapter. And if you know the story behind The Green Mile, I'm not going to do any spoilers, the last book was where you found out that what you thought had happened maybe wasn't the thing you thought had happened. Brilliant. But the way that film came about and honestly, absolutely top notch. I couldn't honestly argue with that. And although we're talking about quite serious films here, like Goodfellas and Casino and The Godfather and, as we said, Green Mile, I'd have to throw in there Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz. Both of those, they come on the telly, I have to watch them. Just as simple as that. Now, Ken Hatcher says, Star Wars. I don't often find myself at odds with Ken Hatcher, but I never, ever got Star Wars. I think I've definitely seen the original 3. And I think I've seen one of the more recent ones. But it never gripped me. And bizarrely, I can't remember the exact timing, but I went to the cinema with my dad and our next door neighbours. We'd originally gone, I think, to see Star Wars, but we didn't get to see Star Wars, so we ended up going to see Close Encounters of the Third Kind instead. And to my mind, to this day, Close Encounters is a way, way better movie than Star Wars. And yet, my son Fred absolutely adores Star Wars. I know lots of other people do as well. Just not me, apparently. Chris Ford says his movie is Killdozer. Not seen it in years. Crap plot, but it did feature a Cat D9. I remember watching that. And do you remember there was another film? I think it may have been, if I remember rightly, it may have been Steven Spielberg's first movie, and it was called Duel, D-U-E-L, Duel, you know, as in Pistols at Dawn, Duel. And it was about a guy being pursued by a truck. Anyone remember that? Maybe just me. Let's have a look. That's a fine beast, says Dan Cullen. That's the R9800. Footy says, just had Link text me, wanted me to go to Hemel Hempstead to do a what's name? To make sure I can drive the machines. I think it's too far for me to actually go and then come all the way back. Devon to Hemel Hempstead is not exactly convenient, is it? Wow, some buttons and switches and a lot of climbing. Yeah, you'd either end up with finely tuned glutes or very, very sore knees. I think getting in and out that R9800. Dan Cullen says, Tune looks like a great company. I think that was the bridge lift, wasn't it? Peter McKenna is in the house. Good morning to you, Peter. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Get well soon. I think it may come up a bit later in conversation, but our friend Peter is currently suffering from a chest infection. It is that time of year, unfortunately, and I know Peter has his health issues anyway, but it does seem to just catch up with you this time of year. I've had it's not even a proper cough. It's not even decent enough to call itself a cough, but I am at the moment rocking that tune. Now I'm not sure which one that was. There's my good friend Tatiana. Good morning, Tatiana. Thank you so much for being here. Keep up the good work on the Route 1 Publishing video stuff. They are going great guns at the moment. YouTube channels and Facebook channels and all the things. Go check them out. I'd recommend them highly. Let's have a look. It's an awesome job working. Lots of sparks running around. Awesome job taking that down. I totally agree. Wouldn't mind the weigh-in for Christmas. Yes, wouldn't that be nice? Had a little tickle this weekend. I have some premium bonds. I won absolutely sweet Fanny Adams last month, but I won 150 quid this weekend. That's not bad, is it? 150 quid for basically filling out a form. Quite happy with that. I mean, I don't get to keep it, obviously, because my wife is a bit like, you know, the machine in Toy Story, the claw. Yeah, that's my wife. She's already had the 150 quid away. It hasn't even arrived in my bank account, and she's already had it away. But hey, what you never had, you never miss and stuff. There we are. Peter McKenna saying he has got a chest infection at the moment. He also points out Hyundai cars are now ditching hydrogen and going electric. Now, that is an interesting point. I hadn't heard that. I don't really pay a great deal of attention to cars, if I'm being completely honest. But one thing that I do find interesting with that, and I wonder if this is like a universal Hyundai decision, when we were at Bauma, October last year, Hyundai had one of their prototype hydrogen machines on the stand. and kind of, although the machine wasn't operating, to prove that they could make things sing and dance using hydrogen, they actually had a hydrogen car on the stand. If they're ditching hydrogen on the cars, what does that mean for the excavators? Love to know. Ken Hatcher, quite surprisingly, I know Ken is generally quite anti-electric, but he says yes, electric has its place. If you remember rightly, I did actually interview a guy from Volvo when I was at the Nürburgring, maybe 18 months ago. And one of the points that he was making was there are applications out there that are not currently being done by diesel machines because they can't be done by diesel machines. And one of the examples that he gave was soft strip and internal demolition. As I've just proved, Kratos equipment from America have just proved you can now do that with an electric. It's going to be quicker, and it's going to be a whole lot safer as well. I have to think it's the way forward. Indoor demo has to be the one and only Brock. Brock needs to make a loader then, and possibly a dumper as well, maybe. Brock, if you're listening, you heard it here first. Peter McKenna, looks like new off the Teletubbies. That was a vacuum cleaner, right? Anybody else? Yep. Understand using electric inside. Totally. Now, Ken Hatcher, this is the point that I mentioned earlier. The only thing this weekend, no wind. So all electric was gas and nuclear with a little from France. Yeah. Although, as I said, it was certainly blowing plenty here. Blow your hat off or your wig if you're wearing one. But as I say, no wind turbines here. But that is going to be an issue. It is going to be an issue. And what is going to happen? I mean, we've had a bit of a cold snap. We've had, I think the lowest we've had here in Surrey is about -1 so far. But give it another month or two and we're going to be down to the proper sub-zeros. What's going to happen then? Are we going to be going back to some remaining coal just to keep the lights on? Be interesting to see. Chris Fall points out a lot of whole body vibration with that skid steer. Then again, better than whole body ache pain from swinging a hammer, because that is the alternative. Soft strip at the moment is sledgehammers and crowbars and mattocks and that kind of thing. That's an ideal alternative. not necessarily the machines without cabs. I do think there is some scope for machines with cabs, particularly when you're taking down sort of duct work overhead and that kind of thing. You don't want that falling on an operator's head. So electric, indoors, absolutely, but with a cab, please. That would be nice. Yeah, I wouldn't like to fall off it though. And I'm sure we've all seen videos on YouTube of full-size dumpers. So, you know, your proper Thwaites, Benford type dumper where somebody's gone over the top and landed in the skip. That's going to hurt. But also these ride-on ones, because if you do go over the handlebars, you know what I mean. If you go over the handlebars, you're going head first. Not good. Dan Carl says, is there a separate category for this machine as a ride-on? I don't know the rules and regulations on that. I would imagine there must be. I can't imagine the training providers have missed the trick on ride-ons. But yeah, it does look like it would need some specific training, that I would say. Peter McKenna says, I think the only thing I'll be riding for a while is my sofa. Thanks, Mark, for keeping me entertained, updated with all these new technologies. Peter, I wouldn't have it any other way. And looking forward to sharing your company. Even though I'd love for you to get your health fully back and then bugger off back to work, I'll enjoy your company while you're here. Dan Collins says, nice looking machine, but the levers are a loss. No feel on the hydraulics. I think that may be the Hyundai machine that we had. Graham Footy Williams says, don't think youngsters want to come into the industry because it's not computerised enough for them. They like sitting down doing computers, don't want to be on the ground or sitting in the machine these days, and don't want to get dirty. I think there's a lot to be said for that. I do think there's a lot to be said for that. But I also think, which is kind of what prompted my story for today, is I think we've got a generation now who are more aware of work and what work entails and work-life balance and stuff. When I was I left college at 17 to get a job, and as far as I was concerned, it was basically let's just go and find a job to pay basically to keep me in clothes and beer at the time. So that was the idea. And then I took another job, and then I took another job. And even when I moved from a hotel and restaurant magazine over to Contract Journal to start writing about construction, I gave it no thought whatsoever. I think young people do so more now. And I know in extreme cases they're concerned about, is the company they're working for ethical? Are they in a sustainable business and all that kind of thing? Then you've got concerns over the way that they treat minorities, ethnic minorities, gender balance and all that kind of thing. I think that's all part of it. But I think just the general way that people are treated. And I'm going to make a sweeping generalisation, and it pains me to do it because I'm on the side of demolition construction. I think if I were 17, 18 years old and I was looking for a job, I think, based on what I see in the newspapers, based on what I see on the TV, based on just gut feel, I'd be inclined to think that I would be better treated in pretty much every way in an office than I would on a site. Sites are dirty, dangerous, sweary, shouty places to live and to work, whereas an office is air conditioned, you've got a nice comfy seat. Chances are the people that you're working with are not shouting and swearing all the time. I have worked with a few, but chances are that won't be the case. And I think if you're sufficiently qualified to be able to make the choice, and it becomes a balancing act, do I go for office job where I'm not in the pouring rain, I'm not up to my knees in mud, I'm not being shouted and sworn at all the time, or do I go and suffer all the consequences? That's more or less the story of today's column. Andy Darvell, better late than never. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry I'm late. Been sorting out a broken in a ditch. A broken what in a ditch, I wonder. There we are. Mick Norton, thank you very much indeed for that, Mick. Mark, loved your recent piece on Sam's story. That's my card today. Beautifully crafted. Thank you very much indeed for that, Mick. That's really very much appreciated. Now, I mentioned the fact that I've got a frog in my throat. Chris Ford said, better have a frog in the throat than a toad in the hole. Well, you know, any port in a storm. There we are. It's a broken pipe in a ditch. Thank you very much indeed for that. Peter McKenna, too much information. I agree. Have you ever had a toad in the hole? Not recently. Not recently. Cumberland is the best, according to Peter McKenna. I'm inclined to agree. Favourite movie? I've got a story to go with this. The favourite movie from Mick Norton, The Bible, although it's not as good as the book. So, I'm trying to remember the exact term for it. Doesn't matter. So, the National Federation of Demolition Contractors, for quite a long time, had somebody explained to me what the terminology is, because I can't remember the word, but they had a Catholic priest who was kind of associated to them. There is a word for it. It's gone out of my head. I can't remember what it was. Father Dennis McGillicuddy, absolutely smashing fella. I'm not even remotely religious, but an absolutely smashing fella. Love him to death. Anyway, he was at an NFDC convention once, and he was sat at breakfast on his own with his muesli probably, and a glass of orange juice and a cup of coffee, and he was reading the Bible. And somebody that I know walked over to him and said, "Morning, Dennis. You know he dies in the end, right?" Well, just even now makes me laugh. Peter McKenna, favourite movie? Animal Farm. I've never seen the movie. I have, however, read the book. Kevin and Ferry, go large. All I want to do is do it. Big girl, big girl. Do you know, I've not watched it recently enough to remember what any of that is about. I may have to go back and have a watch. Peter McKenna, alternatively, question of the day, War of the Worlds. War of the Worlds. Is that the Tom Cruise one, or the one, was there one, not one before, or was that just a radio program that Awesome Worlds did? Let's have a look. Blimey. Question of the day, second favourite film, Hellfighters. We may be cool, but we'll never be as cool as John Wayne on a D8. That's actually a meme, isn't it? Yeah, he is on an open top D8. Footy Williams says Lord of the Rings. Yeah, there's another one. Like Star Wars. I watched the first one and it was okay. I quite enjoyed it. But I didn't go back for the second or the third. I didn't do any of the Hobbits. Didn't grip me quite the way at all. Do you remember those? Yeah, I'm sure there are a few. First films that got me stirring in my loins were the Confession of series of films. Yes, Confessions of a Window Cleaner. Was it Robin Asquith? That was the fella on there, wasn't it? Question of the day. Second movie, The Gentleman on Netflix. Yeah, Hugh Grant playing a Cockney, which is never not funny. Yes, Duel, if I remember rightly, it was Dennis Weaver pursued by a fuel tanker. It was indeed. Now, Mick Norton is questioning whether John Wayne was on a D7 or a D8. I can't remember. I honestly can't remember. Now, I don't know. 1154, the only Englishman to become a pope, Nicholas Breakspear, became Pope Adrian. Why do they change their name? Why do they do that? Pope Nicholas is all right, isn't it? What would be wrong with that? We covered that one, Peter, but in 1948, George Orwell completed his the final draft of the book 1984, which was published on the 8th of June 1949. I've read that too. Think about that. He wrote that 40 odd years, nearly 40 years before it was actually 1984. And boy, oh boy, didn't he get a lot right. 1952, at least 4,000 people died in a week from breathing difficulties during a severe London smog. Yes, London smog. I actually looked out the window yesterday morning when it was very foggy, and I said to my son, Fred, it's a pea super out there. And he looked at me like I'd landed from Mars, and he said, it's a what? And I had to explain what a pea super was. Those of a certain age will, I'm sure, remember exactly what a pea super was. I can't wait to try the Volvo 230 electric out, says Andy Bullock, brother. Imagine how quiet and potentially more power. Electric motors so much more power than combustion engines, and so much faster too. So much more responsive. When you finally get to take that for a spin, Andy, I expect a full report. Looking forward to it. Dan Cullen says, like I said, they've jumped the gun too quickly on demolition of power plants. Yeah, it's the British eagerness to follow the rules. I realise we're not part of the EU these days, but that was what brought the power stations down. We were part of the EU, and the EU, in its infinite wisdom, said we are going to do away with fossil fuel power plants as part of the, what was it called? The Large Boiler Directive or something like that. And whereas most of Europe went, yeah, we will, but we need to replace it first. Here in the UK, we went, absolutely, knock them all down. Oh, the lights don't work anymore. Typically British. Chris Ford says it might have been a D7 Mick. Just sit and watch it. Wonder how they got the explosive in a 45-gallon drum. I'm going to have to go back and watch this. Can you do your training while you're sitting on your sofa, please, Peter McKenna? That's a thought. You could. Perhaps the second-hand market needs some confidence to rid the myth of machine battery banks needing to be changed. Electric has its places, Tim Many, will become more and more as technology and in-house infrastructure improves. Yeah, I totally agree. When you think, I realise this is not a perfect precedent, but if you think we switched as an industry from steam to diesel, I realise there wasn't a breakfast show back then, but I would imagine there was a large degree of scepticism and everything else. But we overcame that, and then we had diesel for 100 years or thereabouts. I wonder if we're just a bit too close to it now, and I wonder if things like this and Tinternet and stuff like that, we're making more of it out of it than we really need to. Dan Cullen says, I can't stand Star Wars. I wouldn't go that far. I have no issue with it, and I like me a bit of Harrison Ford. I quite like me a bit of Princess Leia, gold bikini and all. Love a bit of that. But it just never. Whereas some people have been utterly gripped by it. Like there is not a Bond movie that I have not seen. If a Bond movie comes out, I go to the cinema and I watch it, and then I'll watch it again on TV. Star Wars, did the first couple, and then drifted off. Graham Footy Williams says, I like The Hobbit because I've got large feet as well. Identifying with the characters. Morning all, the hound needed walking and decided to chase a large poodle of the female variety. Was it the dog? Was it the dog, Mick? Or was it you chasing the female poodle? Nice. Did he have his wicked way? I'd rather not know. I'd rather not know. Right, people. As I say, I've got some planning to do, but just let me... Peter McKenna says, I agree, Dan, Star Wars, bleh, and Bond movies. I can't agree with the second bit, but hey, each to their own. Let's have a look. He had a good go footy, but the bird walking said poodle was not happy. No, I can imagine. Right, just a very quick reminder. The prediction show is on Wednesday this week at 7 p.m. If you've got any predictions that you would care to share, I'd love to hear them. We're going to spend the first 10, maybe 15 minutes looking back at our predictions, or more specifically, my predictions from 2022. So we did it in December last year. I don't think I've done particularly well. I think I got 2 out of about 8, which is not great. So we're going to sit down, we're going to have a look at those and see if any of those are worth retaining, but we're also going to come up with a whole new bunch. So if you believe that, I'm trying to think of something really obscure. Yes, if you think that JCB is likely to enter the dozer market, possibly re-enter. I'm fairly sure they had a dozer in the past. If you think JCB are about to enter the dozer market, please let us know. Anything else quite like that. Peter says, bye, I'll catch you on WhatsApp group. If not part of that, catch you all tomorrow, same time, same place. Yes, I will be here tomorrow. 10 a.m. for more of the same. We've got some more good stuff to show you, I'm sure. Can't tell you what it is because I can't remember, but I'll be back tomorrow. As I say, if you are in the WhatsApp group, as soon as it's over, the show's over today, I will drop a link to Sam's story, which, as I say, is it's a work of fiction, but it may well ring true. Chris Ford, who is busily writing Christmas cracker puns at the moment, he says, "It's raining cats and dogs here. I've just stepped in a poodle." Please, Chris, go away and think about what you just did. Mick Saunders says, "Poor poodle." Dan Cullen, have a safe day, guys. Chat tomorrow. Yeah, look forward to it. I was in the group, someone upset me, so I walked away. I did not know that. Footy, I will send you a link anyway. Although I can't remember. Let me just make sure. I need to check a thing. No, there's no point in me sending it to you because it is written. I know when I do some of my articles over on Medium, you can actually press a play button, and the play button will do it as audio. Substack, which is where that column exists, does not do that. So my apologies for that. Yes, people, go. Chris Ford, I'll go and sit in the corner until tomorrow. Quite right too. Everybody, go and have a fantastic day. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for all your input. Back tomorrow for more of the same. Until then, have a good one. All the very best.